This morning on the record.
I'm Elizabeth Warren. I'm running for the United States Senate.
An OTR debut, Democratic frontrunner Elizabeth Warren, the novice Paul and seasoned professor who thinks she is the one to beat Republican Scott Brown in 2012.
Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
Lights on and nobody home? Does Mitt Romney really have to consider Rick Perry anymore? And
who's really fighting for America's middle class today? We asked the voters.
From WCVB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill, today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with my colleague here at News Center 5, Janet Wu, our political reporter. Today on OTR, the woman who dominated the Democratic field for U.S. Senate in Massachusetts before she even announced back in September. Elizabeth Warren is with us. Raised in Oklahoma, she's a professor at Harvard Law School. Elizabeth Warren gained national attention when she chaired the U.S. banking bailout and advised on the creation of the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. A graduate of the University of Houston, Warren holds a law degree from Rutgers School of Law. At 62, she has lived in Massachusetts for the past 18 years. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us on OTR this morning.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us.
Thanks for being here. This past week, American Crossroads, which is a Karl Rove group, launched a new ad linking you to Occupy Wall Street. Let's listen to a quick snippet of it.
At Occupy Wall Street, protesters attack police, do drugs, and trash public parks. They support radical redistribution of wealth and violence. But Warren boasts, I created much of the intellectual foundation for what they do. I support what they do.
So is it fair or not fair for them to link you so closely with Occupy Wall Street?
Well, it's fair to say that I've been protesting Wall Street for years and years. I went to Washington in part to try to stop the bank bailout from just giving away money, no strings attached. I've gone toe-to-toe with some of the CEOs of the largest Wall Street financial firms. I've even fussed with people in our government about how they treat the biggest firms. So, yeah, I've been fighting Wall Street for a very long time.
These are your people?
Well, I am glad to see lots of people start to really push on this issue. Let's face it, something's badly broken in America right now. We've got a middle class that has been hammered financially for a generation, and we've got a Washington that works only for those who can hire an army of lobbyists and an army of lawyers. And that means it's not working for the rest of us. So, yeah, I protest that. I've been worried about that. I've been working on that for a very long time.
So their mission, their philosophy, their tactics, you all agree with?
Now, let's be clear. Everybody has to follow the law. There's no exception on that. And more to the point, though, this is an independent, organic movement. It's its own voice. It has its own pieces. It will go in its own direction. We don't speak with a unitary voice anywhere about what needs to be changed. There are lots of people, lots of voices, whether they've taken to the streets, whether they're sitting at home just saying, this doesn't work anymore. We need a lot of voices saying, we got to have change, because it's clear Washington's not looking to change on their own, and Wall Street is going to keep pumping money into Washington, pumping it into elections to make sure that their way is the dominant way in this country. I think that's wrong.
We mentioned in the introduction of what you have accomplished, but you've never run for office before.
No, I haven't. I'm a first-timer here.
This I don't want to diminish anything, but this is the United States Senate you're running for.
I know.
This is a major office that you're running for here. What makes you think that you are the best one that can take on Scott Brown, who has 2 decades of public service in his resume?
He's been a politician for 20 years now. He's been through this electoral process. But I'll tell you, this is now about the future of America's middle class. I have done everything I know to work on behalf of middle-class families. I started out, I did the research, I've written the books. I went to Washington over the bailout. I went to Washington to advocate for a consumer protection agency to stop people from not getting cheated on credit cards and on mortgages. And then when I was asked, I went to Washington and set that agency up. What I'm looking for are the best ways to make changes on behalf of middle-class families.
But when the president came to select a head for that, it wasn't you.
The Republicans had made it very clear that I was never going to be the head of that agency. I came back to Massachusetts and I went all around this Commonwealth and I talked to people and I said, look, I'm going to keep talking about the issues. I want change. We need change and we need urgency. We can't just sit back and say change over 30 years. I could do this by taking the fight to the floor of the United States Senate. And people said, if you do that, I'll be with you. And that's why it was that I jumped into this race. I may not be good at the electoral part of this, but I guarantee I know in my heart where I'm headed and what I'm going to try to do with this fight on behalf of middle-class families.
But in order to run a campaign and in order to fight this fight, you need money. That's just how it is. And you raised a phenomenal amount of $3 million in just one quarter, your very first quarter of fundraising. But almost 70% of the money came from out of state. In fact, there was a big party by Norman Lear, who's a Hollywood producer for you, where there was money held, a lot of celebrities there. You say you're running for the middle class, but how can you justify taking so much money from out of state, from, big pockets, and honestly claim that you are running on behalf of the middle class?
Oh, my gosh. So let's start this with the notion. Remember, Wall Street has already said they will pour as much money into this election as they need to pour into it for Scott Brown. Indeed, I think I was seeing the articles in places like Politico saying they're trying to figure out the best way to pour in just buckets and buckets and buckets of money, both independently and directly into his campaign, because they have exactly one thing they want to do. They want to keep Wall Street's favorite senator, I think he's one of their most favorite senators in the top 10 out of, 535 in Congress. They want to make sure he stays in that spot voting for their interests. I'm out here trying to get something going in a Senate campaign, and I really want to make sure we start with, if we're going to look at the numbers, how many people from here in the Commonwealth? 11,000 people said, I want to make a contribution. I want to be part of this. More than 90% of our contributors contributed $100 or less to say, I want to be part of this campaign. It's important, and it's important to me. But I'm not going to be foolish about this. I am asking for help, and I'm asking for help from anyone who can put some money into this campaign so that middle-class America can have a voice in Washington.
We have reached the point in the program we call the OTR Pop Quiz.
Oh, my. All right.
Professor, you've run many a quiz. The 401ks and the retirement future of millions of Americans are at risk because of the Eurozone debt crisis. And that's the focus of the OTR Pop Quiz today. The Greek Prime Minister, George Papandreou, made a provocative move last week when he emerged from a meeting with G20 world leaders with the debt deal and decided to offer his countrymen which option?
A vote?
Yes, the Greeks would vote on the deal.
Yes.
The average age for Social Security retirement in the United States is rising to 67. It has been 65. Now, let me ask you a ballpark figure. What is the average retirement age for Greek citizens, after all, Greek being in the news? And I'll give you three options: 50, 58, or 62.
Oh, it's 50.
It's 58, but at least 14%. But as a secondary part to what you said, at least 14%, which is a large percentage, get the option to do it at age 50. So you're going to
do I get part credit?
You're more than part credit.
You're
Continue
good.
on the record
Thank
with
you.
Elizabeth Warren. Stay with us.